we know, like for this summer session, almost like more than 30 individuals has joined. So today is the AMA session with Raghunathan. And in addition to that, we have Tracy, who is the executive coach for STEMPeers Gurukul. She will take different initial and important lessons which are needed for academic to industry transitions. So before anything, like I would like to give you a brief intro about like the Raghu. So he's one of the best mentor, and I should say basically he's the big B of, like, big B is basically Bollywood, that Amitabh Bachchan of mentoring actually. So he's one of the board member of STEMPeers, and he already has like more than 20 years of industry experience. As of now, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, as of now, he's the director of business development for US East in Spiro company. And till now, like he had worked with many different companies in the versatile role like Mars Biologics, Quartz Bio, Metabolon, Horizon Discovery, Sigma, Kaizen, and I can go on with this actually. So yeah, I think he did his PhD from University of Hyderabad, and after that he joined as a postdoc in Warsiland, and after that Yale University, and further he moved into a company. And as I told, like he has played a versatile player in different companies. So I think he has 3 patents and lots of publication on his accounts. So yeah, with this, I will take a pause and hand over to Raghu and other individual to ask questions from him actually. So yeah,
cool.
anybody
Thank you.
Anybody can go and like ask questions.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. This was a surprise session. I was looking at the STEMPeers website, I mean the Facebook site, and I saw Tracy was offering this AMA thing, and I said, hey, it's been a while since I did one of these things. Maybe I should ping Shiva and say, hey, I would be happy to do one of these things sometime. And she's like, can you do it tomorrow? I'm like, what? So this was a quickly put together session. I had a bunch of slides from one of my previous sessions. So some of the slides you might see might be repeats, but I thought I'll take this opportunity to talk to you all and see and basically introduce field-based careers as an option. So with that in mind, I'll share my screen and let me know if you can see it. Do you see it now?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. So I will put it on presentation mode and go from here. So feel free to raise your hand, and I may not see people raising hands, but Gaurav, you are the moderator, so let me know if somebody has a question in between. So I'll start with this field-based careers. The goal was to introduce, something different from conventional careers to the group. Everybody coming out of a lab, academic lab, I don't know if it has been taught or if they've been told that they can go into another career other than becoming an academic professor, assistant professor, or just becoming a scientist in the biotech industry. So there are so many different career options. There are quite a few people on STEMPeers, Gurukool, and others platforms within STEMPeers who reach out once in a while and say, hey, what else can we do? I want to do this, I want to do that. There are actually plenty of opportunities out there. So I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about that. So what are we talking about? What we used to call as conventional career path, which is an academic position, is no longer a conventional path, as I'm sure a lot of you would agree with me. Statistics says that there's only about 10% of the opportunities for academic positions, right? Going into becoming a professor, assistant professor, having an academic career track. The remaining 90% make up the alternate career choices. So the question is, If 90% is the alternate career choice, is that really alternate? That should be the main track, if you ask me, right? So the alternate choice is becoming an academic professor. And there are so many options out there. So I actually borrowed some slides from another person who had put together some work. So this is the site, if you can see in the bottom, Vicky from Biomed Badass. She has 40 industry careers for scientists. So look this up when you get some time later on to see what the different choices you have. So to quickly go through here, you see in the STEM professional area, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 across and 10 columns. So that is 40 different career options, right? So did we even think that there were so many options, career options? I know in the introduction, a couple of you said, I don't know what else is there to do. Feast your eyes here, right? So these are 40 options, and I'm sure there are more out there, right? So I'm not going to go through all of these because my focus or what I wanted to talk about was field-based careers, right? So I thought I will probably highlight a few of them here. And these with the yellow stars, as you can see, are some of the field-based positions out here, starting with the account manager. Let me take a laser pointer, I guess. Right, account manager, application scientist, MSL positions, BD or business development manager, or technical sales profession. These are some of the few, some of the many field-based positions out there. So I'll probably just read this out just so you hear it once. The other career options are business intelligence analyst, clinical research associate, being a coach, a data engineer, data scientist, digital marketer, entrepreneur, freelance writer, health and safety advisor, lab manager, machine learning engineer, management consultant, manufacturing scientist, market access analyst, market research analyst, medical editor, medical science liaison, medical writer. I know somebody mentioned, Piyush mentioned he wants to be a medical writer, patent agent, process scientist, product manager, product support specialist, project manager, public relations officer, QC scientist, QA, recruiter, regulatory affairs officer, R&D scientist. A lot of you are heading there. Science teacher or tutor, scientific journal editor, scientific journalist, software developer, technical author, technical sales rep, user experience researcher, venture capital analyst. So there's plenty of opportunities out there. So I just picked these 5 career paths here, and I thought I'll show some individual slides on this. And then basically, I don't intend on reading all of it, but I thought if you go to that website that I mentioned in the previous slide, you will see all of these and you can read through all of these. What does it take to be a medical liaison officer, right? For example, how do I get rid of this window here? Okay, so anyway, I started the medical science liaison MSL position here because that is probably one of the most, um, I would say, slightly challenging career paths taking off from a postdoc position because this is going to be very medical related. You need to have a little more medical science background connections. If somebody here has a MD background or a medical background, it'll be an easier transition for them. But the companies, pharma companies, are also hiring people with PhDs as medical liaison. So look up the requirements, the skills needed for this, and that might be something that you could venture into. The next one, I'm gonna put this down here. The next one I highlighted here is an application scientist position. I think this is one of the most, comfortable transitions that you can do from being a scientist, being in a lab, doing research, and going into this. All you need is a change of mindset where you're using these applications, using technologies, etc., in your lab currently, and you've gotten very comfortable with it. You've done troubleshooting for a long time. on some of the technologies or some of the products. And now, if you take this role, you are going to be doing that role for others. You're going to help troubleshoot, help others troubleshoot. You're going to help others install their instrumentation and work with it, how to get the best out of it. Talk to people about the technology that the company offers. Talk about the pros and cons, benefits, values, features, all of that, right? So this is more of a easier transition from being a postdoc into the field-based industry role. So in general terms, when you look at field-based role, they tend to take a commercial, angle to it. They're no more just science and being, I'll do what I know best, what I can do best, and just do science and publish it or talk about science, right? So once you do a field-based role, the requirements change, right? So I'll talk about the requirement, the different skill sets you need to do that better, right? Or be more effective in it. So the next slide I have here is, let me see, account manager, right? Account manager is something like an entry level into a sales role, quote unquote sales role, because a lot of companies, biotech companies there or pharma companies, they are trying to sell their products or their technology or their services to the scientists out there, to academics or other industries, other biotechs and other pharma. So they need people talking about their science and in a commercial role and selling their science and selling their technology and services. So this would be, I would say, first step into the commercial role if you're interested in a sales related role, right? So the responsibilities here would be going and talking to customers or potential customers, identifying opportunities where you can place or where you can position your technology, your science, your product, your services, your platform, right? So as I said, I'm not reading through everything in this, but while I'm talking, probably you have the opportunity to see that and read through some of it. But at the same time, you can go back to the original link that I provided and look it up in your spare time. The next one I have here is the technical sales professional. So how is this different from an account manager? The technical sales professional is, when you say account manager, it could be very transactional things, something like plasticware, for example, um, and something that is transactional. They can just purchase off of your website, or they need bulk. They would call you, and kits, PCR kits, or molecular biology kits, purification kits. All of that are science-related stuff. Plus, again, depends on what the company is offering. It could be a whole variety of things, a whole portfolio of things. But when they call it a technical sales rep, it involves a little more of the science coming in. I would say it is in between a field application specialist and an account manager kind of a role, right? So there will be a requirement of understanding science and explaining the science and relating to the science part of it more than you just do as an account manager, right? Um, the the fifth or the last slide I had there in that series was a BD manager, a business development manager. So this seems like a place where you would grow into, starting in as a field application specialist or account manager or technical sales representative, right? So this looks at a little bigger picture when you go into the sales field. Um, this involves a whole lot of interactions, having some strategy, having some vision for the group, for the commercial angle, right? Commercial aspect of the company you're working for, and coming up with businesses, deal structures, licensing, all of that. So there's again each of those titles that I said. It depends the role you do, the actual work you do depends on the company you represent, right? And the expectations, the compensation package would also vary with different companies. Each company would have their own structure. The compensation package would be different. For example, a field application specialist could be just a support role where you're talking about science, doing presentations, etc., um, and supporting the sales staff. So at that point, you'd have a base pay and maybe a bonus and the other, benefit packages. But if you, in some companies, field application specialists will also have a sales target, meaning you have to bring in X amount of revenue per year or per quarter. So when you have that kind of a role, you also have a commission package. So in addition to your base pay, you get a commission depending on how well you perform and how much revenue you bring into the company. So for people who have that business acumen, these kind of roles would be more suitable. So any questions so far? I just want to stop for a minute. Can you all hear me? Gaurav, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if there's no questions, I want to jump into maybe talk a little bit more about, in general terms, what is business development? It could be, it could relate to all the different roles I talked about so far, for account development, account manager, field application specialist, even MSL. All of this is based on top of something called business development. And that can be um, summarized as the ideas, initiatives, and activities that help make a business better, right? So in your mind, you have to think about how can I make this business better? The company that you're working for, working with, working as, how do you make it better? How do you make it grow, right? So what would make that happen is increasing revenues, growth in terms of business expansion, increasing profitability by building strategic partnerships and making strategic business decisions, right? So if you do all of these or any of these, you are actually doing business development for the company, right? So what skills do you need? So now some of you are going, okay, I'm a research scientist, I'm a postdoc, I know only science. What can I do? How can I do it? What skills do I need? Um, you probably have most of the skills already, if you ask me. Don't be surprised. You have analytical skills. You did research, you generated data, and you know how to analyze it. You know how to put one and one together, two and two together. You know how to derive conclusions out of that. So that's analytical skills, and you have done that effectively while you're doing your postdoc and your PhD. Communication skills, very important, obviously, because when you're talking to somebody, they should understand you, right? If you have that ability to communicate effectively, that is a very, very strong soft skill. Negotiations and persuasion. So if you are trying to sell something, you're trying to convince somebody of your idea, you need to know how to persuade and convince and negotiate, right? And most of us have that. We just have to dig into our own selves and see, I have done this, I know how to do this, or I know some tricks, but you can always pick up on others, right? Being goal focused, being organizational, meaning being organized a little bit, business intelligence, reading up around the business that you're working, the field, the area, the market, the importance, the value of what you're talking about. That's important. And research and strategy, which we are all good when we're doing our postdoc experience. We are good at doing research and strategizing, planning our experiments, next steps, and why did it fail? How can I do the next experiment better? How many replicates should I have? What control should I have? All of that is part of the strategy part. And then self-awareness, right? Self-awareness is really, really important. Knowing out of these skills, what do I lack, or where can I improve? What can I do better? And trying to figure out where can I learn all of that? Where can I get that information? And working towards that. So if you know what you're lacking or what you're good at, you can always improve and help others, right? So with this, what are the different opportunities out there for a BD role or if you have all the scientific background or all the skill sets you have, you can go into the biotech sector. You can do sales, account management, technical sales rep kind of roles. You can go into the pharma industry where you can actually go into business development, mergers and acquisition kind of roles. If you have a little more background or interest in finance, part of that business organization, operations part of it, that is always there. And if you go into the academic sector, even there you have a lot of roles, right? A lot of opportunities in licensing, licensing technologies. I'm sure if you look into your universities where you are, they have a BD office, they have a licensing technology office. So you can look at opportunities there as well. So these are all unconventional roles, not the conventional academic roles that you'll be looking at. There are some slight differences between these 1, 2, and 3. The type of skill sets that you need, the type of background information you need. Maybe you can pick up a course somewhere. LinkedIn offers hundreds of courses, right? Free courses. You can just learn some of them. You can get certified in some of the requirements. So depending on which field fascinates you, I would recommend that you build your resume on top of that. So what are some of the roles and responsibilities of these 3 different avenues that I just talked about: biotech, pharma, and academic? And what are the skill sets that you might need? So I'm just going to throw out some phrases here, some skill sets here, some roles and responsibilities here. So if any of these resonate with you, right, that means you are in the right direction, or at least you can head in that direction. So I just put them as three boxes here. Uh, each box relates to the opportunities I listed in the previous slide: biotech, pharma, and academic, where I see the type of roles and responsibilities that you could tap into. So if any of these kind of TNCs here mean terms and conditions, right? If you're lost in the alphabet soup. So all of these are things that you'd be looking at if you are in getting into these opportunities. And going through each of this would again take a lot of time to explain the details and stuff. I'll be happy to talk to people who are interested considering these career options and helping them navigate through this a little bit, right? But these are some of the things that you should look for as roles, responsibilities, and areas for you to build skills on before you start getting into a mindset where you want to approach these career options. So with all those responsibilities, roles, and skill sets, how do you do it? I think putting the pieces together is the important part. So you have all these different skill sets, and they all work together hand in hand to enable business development, right? So how do you become one? So that's a question. Now I'm a postdoc. I have done research for so many number of years. How do I become one, a BD person, or go into sales, or go into a field-based position? So these were the skills I said you already have, or you're hopefully positioning yourself to have coming out of your postdoc. And then you become one by sharpening your skills. You have to develop your business acumen. Unfortunately or fortunately, it turns out that while you're doing a postdoc, nobody's thinking about business, right? You're thinking about going ahead with your science, getting your experiments to work, publish, and then move on further. But you're not thinking about how that product came to you, how that kit came to you, what there is science behind it that it was developed, right? So when I was doing my PhD, I used to take brain tissue, grind it up with the buffer, with sucrose, and do centrifugation to separate out the different organelles in it, different fractions of the cell, extract. I would put it on a column, sit in a cold room, count the drops, collect them in tubes, put them, you know, those were the days. But now everything has a kit. Everything has an extraction buffer. Everything has a purification system. Everything can be done with kits and reagents available off the market. So all you need now is a manager who knows science, and you can manage your science and your experiments, and it keeps going. But if you think about how did these come about, can you develop something? Can you patent something out of it? Can you develop your science, something you're working on, into a technology? All of that adds to the business acumen. You know, I'm buying 10 kits now, and maybe I can get more from the sales rep for a discount if I tell him that I'm going to use 100 kits over the year. You know, even if you start thinking like that, that adds to your thought process, your commercial thought process. I know at home we do that, right? When you go into a grocery store, we buy by volume. When you want to buy a TV, you look for deals. We do that in real life, but take that into science, into further into your career aspect, and you see that you have some business skills, you have some business acumen. So now you take your resume and you reformat your resume to highlight all your business development skills, right? All your analytical skills, stuff like that. And take an initiative to read books, business related books, sales related books, take some courses, go through LinkedIn. You'll find a lot of these courses. um, Experience. How do you get experience? You talk to people who are in the field and see if you can shadow them. If you have an hour, make friends with the sales reps or the BD guys who come visit your account. I'm sure there are a lot of people who come to your universities, your department, they're stocking the stockroom. So go chat with them, see if you like what they're doing, and even ask to shadow them. And if they say, oh, I don't know if I can let you shadow me, you say, hey, I'll recommend that lab to you. Let me introduce that person. They buy your kits, right? So you go with them, introduce them, you see how they do their pitch. That is shadowing, right? So basically, you get some free exposure to what their life looks like. And then you start understanding, okay, am I cut out to do this? Can I face this kind of experience on a daily basis? Um, so those are some of the ways you can pick up on some of the experiences. And then if you have any interest in developing products or inventions or developing ideas, patents, that also helps. How did I do it? I know Gaurav gave a good introduction up front, but my earlier days, I did a PhD in animal science. I didn't know I would get a job doing animal science PhD, but it was in the neuroscience area. As I said earlier, I would work with rat brains, purify some proteins, and try to characterize it, identify the function, etc. So after that, I came for a postdoc here, quite a long tenure of postdoc. Then during my postdoc, I took additional courses in computers, understanding business, did some side jobs, and the interest around while doing PhD. Obviously, now everybody's smart, thinking about everything else. My interest was thinking about money. How do I make more money? Can I come up with new ideas that could be patented? Uh, Thinking about startups. Luckily, I was in a nice big postdoc lab where my boss was an entrepreneur. He had started a couple companies. So I got that startup bug in me earlier, right? So I wanted to be an entrepreneur when I grew up. I wanted to get into business. So all of these are things that, you know, keep your mindset in that direction. But transitions are not easy. So after my postdoc, I went in as a biotech scientist, worked for a few years. This is where I got the opportunity to co-invent a technology. I don't know how many of you are familiar about whole genome amplification. That is one of the technologies that I'm a co-inventor of, WGA, whole genome amplification with the isothermal enzyme. That has become an integral part of all next-gen sequencing platforms nowadays, where you get a small amount of template and you amplify that or build a library using isothermal amplification. So I'm happy that I got that opportunity to be there at that time. So once I got into that, I was networking with the BD people, marketing people, finance people in this biotech company. And we developed the technology, commercialized it, and we were able to package it into a kit and offer it commercially. So since I was part of the team who developed it, I got on to being a customer support specialist. I was on the phone answering questions, troubleshooting to scientists everywhere. So I got the kick of it. I liked it. So I would go with those marketing people. They do seminars. I would take questions, Q&A answers, and then I would say, "Oh, this is fun. I'd like to do this too." Right? So if I could answer questions there, why not myself do the presentation, right? So I started thinking that way, and I asked the BD guy, "Do I need an MBA to go into business development?" And he said, "No, you don't need an MBA. You just need somebody to help you get into that position." So I got into the next opportunity came. The company I was working with closed down, and the technology was acquired by some other company. And at that point, we were 95 people in the small biotech company, and they let go everybody. And the new company I interviewed, and I was probably one of the two people they hired, and that company was Kyogen. So all of you probably know Kyogen if you're doing molecular biology, right? Kyogen. So I went into Kyogen as a technology specialist, and they said, "We'll give you a job, but we don't need scientist positions. We're going to take the technology to Germany, but we need somebody in the field who can help the sales reps, who can coach the sales reps, who can help the customer support, all of that." So I said, "Okay." And they said, "Okay, you're in Connecticut. We don't need anybody in Connecticut. We want you in California." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So there was a time when I had to take risks and identify an opportunity and jump, take an opportunity, make it work for me, right? So luckily for me, my family was very helpful, cooperative, and wife was okay to move with me. So moved all the way from Connecticut to California, coast to coast, to take this first job. And I was risking it. I was taking a risk because I was a scientist until then. And I didn't know what a field-based position was going to be. Plus, I had to take a pay cut because there was going to be a compensation package there, right? Which had a lower base pay, but a commission attached to it. So thinking about it, I'm like, can I survive with that less amount of money? $10,000 less than my previous job, but there's an opportunity to make 20,000 more if I take a 10,000 cut, if I hit the targets, right? So in your mind, you have to adjust that, make an adjustment saying, okay, I'm okay living with 10,000 less, but if I can get 20,000 more, it's a better opportunity. So that was the thing going on in my head at that point. So I took the opportunity, made the jump, and went to California. And that provided me an opportunity to go do all these new things. When I told people, hey, I took this job, they're like, "Oh, this is a perfect job for you. You like to talk, you're friendly, you're an outgoing person, extrovert. Go ahead, this is going to be fun." But there are obviously challenges, right, when you take such an opportunity. So what are some of the challenges that you might face taking such a role? So here, the first thing is no more lab, right? We are all comfortable going to the lab, go in the morning, come back in the evening, go back again in the evening, sleep in the lab sometimes. We're comfortable doing that. But now you have no more lab. Your comfort zone is gone. You're sitting in an office around computers and paperwork. That's about it. So that is a challenge, is changing your mindset, feeling like an outcast. For example, when you're in sales or BD or a field-based position, you're going to go meet customers. And just imagine now you are in the lab and the sales guy is coming from Thermo Fisher or Sigma Aldrich to your lab. And then you're like, "Oh, the sales guy is coming, run, you're out of the place. I don't want to talk to him. They're going to sell me some stuff." But now you are going to be that person, right? So you had to remember that. How do I counter that? What was I feeling? You should know that. You should be able to relate to that. And you should be prepared to face rejections. So if you go talk to somebody and you're offering the technology or or a platform or support in science, and they're like, nah, no, I know how to do it. I have something better. This works for me. I don't need it now. I don't have money. You can be disappointed with that, right? Because it's their situation and your situation is different. You're in a place where you can give, right? So you have to be okay, face rejections, and you have to be persistent. You have to be able to go back to the person and offer them something new, keep in touch. Um, and you're on your own. A lot of times you may not have a mentor, your boss, depending on how good your boss is. They may not be willing to teach you step by step what to do next and how to do and how to solve the problems. So a lot of times you might be on your own, but then if you find a good manager, which nowadays everybody is realizing that they have to be a good manager, they want to help and coach and stuff like that. So then you grow in that position, right? And another question is, am I able to return to academics if I fail here or if I don't like it here? That is also a big question in a lot of people's mind. And I have to say that it is not a problem going back to academics. If you really, really like it, really, really stay in touch with the science, and you can make it back into academics after trying it out for a couple of years. The important part is keeping your network open, staying in connection, and how serious you're at the science and keeping on top of things. And you can go back to between industries. If you're in biotech, you can go back into pharma. If you're in pharma, you can go back to biotech. Same thing with academic, right? But again, it depends on how long you've taken a break from one field to the other. So if you're not too far away from them, then there's a good chance you can make an easier transition back into them. And the other thing is the salesperson tag. A lot of people may not like the tag of being a salesperson trying to sell something, right? So you're like, oh, I have a PhD, I have a postdoc, I did here, I did there. But now my friend is calling me a sales guy, right? A sales rep, like a car salesman. So you have to get over the fact, right? You have to present yourself in a way that you're enabling science, you're contributing to science, you're helping others develop drugs or fix something, do something, health, life oriented, life connecting to life and death. So then you start feeling different about it, right? So at the end of the day, I think a whole lot of self confidence and having the right mentors will help you transition pretty easily into this career path. So what are some of the benefits? I talked about challenges, but benefits, you have the satisfaction of growing a business, whether it could be your own business or somebody else's business you're working for. You're actually helping them grow. And in the process, you're learning about the business. In the future, if you want to be a CEO or a CSO of a company or a chief business officer in a company, chief technology officer of a company, it's good to know how a business is run or what are the different sides, perspectives of a business. And this will give you a very good place to be, if you have some of those dreams for your future. It definitely helps with networking and keeping in contact with a lot of people, right? Because you're building your network as you go. With every person you talk, depending how you interact with them, how you keep that relationship going, they are a contact for life, right? So now if you take my phone and you search up my contacts, I use it as a very, very nice little trick when I go for interviews. So I say, okay, tell me a name of a company, and then I put the name of the company in here and show in my contact list. There'll be 12 people in the company, right? So I maintain all of them on my phone. So I have like 4,000 or 5,000 people on this phone. So if I lose my phone, it's gone. Somebody will, will get 5,000 contacts, right? But the thing is to stay in touch as much as you can with the most relevant people. Keep looking over your contact list, your network list, and keep renewing it, right? Um, Touch base with people that mean to you once in a while. So you're not going when you need help, but you're there, there not only when you need help. You also, some of the other benefits I put here is you never get bored. There's no monotony. Like, for example, I currently work in Sphero. doing business development. I'm in charge of half of the US, eastern half of US, for the revenue we generate. Um, so every day I'm talking to a different customer, doing different types of research. I'm talking to people who are doing NASH disease drug discovery. NASH is a liver disease, and 30-40% of our population has some kind of a liver problem. Everybody's eating fries and drinking wine and ruining their liver on a daily basis, right? So there's still no drug for NASH, non-alcoholic steatotic hepatitis, right? So one of the areas that we're working on is developing drugs for NASH and NAFLD, which is another liver disease, right? So I get to talk to these people who are developing drugs. They come up with new chemicals or new drugs, and we help them screen them, look at how they're anti-fibrotic or anti-inflammatory, or they, anti-steatotic and stuff like that. The other side of the business is diabetes, right? We work with 3D spheroids with pancreas, with islets, and we help drug discovery, drug development for diabetes, type 1, type 2 diabetes. The third group is tumor biology. So we work with 3D tumor culture and look at CAR T therapy or immune effect of immune cells on these tumors, and we can do co-cultures with the liver and tumor and islets. Um, and last but not least, we also work in the area of safety and toxicology, liver safety. For example, anybody developing a drug has to consider the fact that the drug could be toxic to the person, right? So the first place where all this junk accumulates in the body is the liver. So what we do is with 3D in Sphero models, we do tox screening of the drugs in various dilutions, dosages, and see how toxic it is, right? So on a daily basis, I'm talking to different companies, right? Anywhere from a small mom and pop shop with 5-6 researchers to big companies like Pfizer, or Novartis, or Merck, or any big company out there. I'm talking to them, and I get to listen to their drug development process, their science. So it keeps me excited, right? So, and then you start feeling, okay, I'm contributing to the development of all of these. So that is the nice part about working in the field, right? And sense of contributing to a bigger cause. I have a local community here, Indian community here, and there are some people, they say, Raghu, what do you do? And I say, I help save lives. So that is my common comeback to them. I help save lives. I don't say I do sales. Don't say I do business development. I say I help save lives. So looking at a bigger picture helps you keep your mind in it. Plus, the nice part, as I said, with these kind of jobs is you have a whole lot of perks. Package, your compensation package could be nice. You can make more money. The salary is good. The bonus is good. Commission is good. You get a lot of stock options. You get perks like car, travel, friends, nice bright red car here. You get an expense account. You get a home office. You can get compensated for all of this, right? So it's not too shabby on the compensation side of things as well. So this car used to be my car until recently, so I don't have it anymore. So just a little side memory on. So with that, I just wanted to end with this slide saying, how do I get into this? How do I get a visibility of what's out there? Where can I look for positions? I recommend if you are really interested and want to go into the sales side, BD side, field application side, this is a good site, Jobless.com. You can register there. It's just like it's not a fancy website, right? You just go in there, put your email address. They might ask you who referred you. Feel free to use my name. And then you identify which territory you want to work in, the East or the West or Midwest, and then types of roles. They have sales positions, technical sales rep positions, field application positions. So you can select what you want and then just subscribe. And you start getting emails on a regular basis saying, hey, this job is open, and it gives you the job description, the requirements, the salary, everything on it, and all the recruiters post on it, right? So on a daily basis, you keep getting posts. If you don't want, you can unsubscribe. But the nice part about this is it's run by one 80-year-old person who's living on his boat in San Diego. His name is Ed. He started this a while ago, and all he does is he sends out this email blast out to people, and it is automated. And the recruiters post jobs on his site, and that gets sent out to everybody out there. He's a nice guy. Actually, a few months ago, I was at a conference, SOT conference in San Diego. He showed up at the booth there. And he said, "Hey, Raghu, how are you? It's been a long time." Started chatting, and he said, "This evening, you want to come over? I'll take you around in my boat." I'm like, cool, let's do it. So that evening, I went down to the place where he told me, and he had his boat there. And he's all set, cleaned it up, and me and my wife, we got on the boat. He took us around into the ocean, around the convention center. It was fun. He had another recruiter there. He also showed up. We had some food, he had some drinks, and generally hung out and came back. And he's been doing this for a few years. And the nice part about that website is you get a lot of information about the requirements and the salary, compensation package, everything. So you know what the market is out there before you go it. We also listed couple other links here. You can also set up a search alert on LinkedIn, and you'll start getting those. I don't need to tell you that. But here, yesterday, I had a friend of mine call from this company. She's the CEO, founder of TFC Biosciences. She said she's looking for some salesperson and also a scientist who is good at molecular biology, who can manage some stuff. So I just thought I'll list it out there. And obviously, there are a lot more places you can look for positions. So with that, I'm going to stop my presentation, open it up for questions. Let me know.
Yeah, thank you for your nice presentation. So I love this, like how you presented that different opportunities are there in the company and what skills, like, or the lab skills or the technical skills we can transform into for a particular job actually. So now I would like to invite everyone to ask questions. So anybody can ask questions or comment in the chat.
First question from Tracy.
Yeah.
My question? Did I have a question?
No, I was just kidding.
Yeah, how do I get a Mercedes? How do I get my boss to give me a Mercedes?
Go
I'm in the
into
wrong
sales.
job.
So the nice part was, I was at Sigma Aldrich when that happened. Oh, I'm looking at the comments now. There are a lot of comments. Nice. I was at Sigma Aldrich, and they, a lot of companies, they offer you a monthly car payment.
Yep.
So you get paid to have a car and visit your customers and drive around. So the payment they gave me was enough for me to buy and maintain that car.
Good.
Cool. Why not? And it was Sigma's color was red, so I bought a red Mercedes.
Yep.
It's cool. You could call it midlife crisis.
I'm old enough to have that now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any questions here? Let me see.
So
anybody has questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that someone wants your slides, so I'm on the hook to ask for your slides. So send them to me.
Sure.
Thanks.
I'll do that.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Oh, I probably should have raised my hand. Thanks, Raghu, for a wonderful presentation. So I am a postdoc at Stanford in the genetics department, and I work on RNA therapeutics. So yeah, the liver disease is, that's like one of the targets that we're working on. So that was fascinating. Anyway, I'm wondering how the compensation packages for a BD role compares to an R&D role in industry. Have any thoughts on that?
So I think they're on par, if you ask me. I'd say I know somebody had posted on STEMPeers recently a link on Twitter to see the different ranges and different areas of the regions of the country. I'd say it ranges anywhere from 80 to 130, right, for the scientist positions. And I'd say for the BD role, sales role, also it would range around the same, depending on your experience. And the nice part about it, though, is like I was saying, the commission part. That's the kicker. You could get a 100K job, but then they'd say probably give you 30K in commission. Probably you'd get a 110K or 120K job in as a scientist. But with the sales position, you might get offered a 100K job with 30K in commissions, right? And that would be again dependent on your performance. So it's usually split into 4 per quarter. You get paid commissions. So if it's a 30K commission structure, you'll get 15, half, 7.5 every quarter if you hit your target. So the target would be something like, okay, you have to bring in $1 million this year. And $1 million would be 250,000 approximately every quarter. So at the end of the 3 months, if you brought in $250,000 or hit your targets, whatever the target is, then you get that $7,500 in your next paycheck, right? So you're not waiting for that small amount, you get that at the end of the quarter. And then the next quarter, probably you don't hit your target. You don't get that extra $7,500. But say the third quarter, you hit the target, you get that 7,500. Plus, say if you hit last quarter's target and the third quarter's target, you probably get $15,000, a nice little bonus check there, right? So the end of the year, you say you hit your whole $1 million target, you made your $30,000, right? But for every dollar you bring in above the target, above the $1 million, you still get paid for it. And a lot of companies motivate you to hit beyond your target. So they say you get $30,000 if you hit your target, but if you go above that, for every $1,000, you get like 5%, or you get X percentage. That'll be more than your actual commission package. So one of the years when I was at Sigma Aldrich, that's when I was driving that nice red car. I was the top international sales person of the year, and that's one of those things out there, one of those medals, trophies out there. So I was given an award to travel anywhere in the world for 10 days. Go wherever you want, 10 days, here's $10,000, right? So I took the entire family and went in 1 week. I vacationed in Rome, Italy, all over the place, and came back. So those are different types of perks that you can get. Did that answer your question, Rohini?
Yes.
So we have
Thanks.
So we have a question from Swagata. Like, could you talk about a little bit more about having your experience with a side job while doing a postdoc? And what are the possibilities? What are the possible opportunity to get one and benefit of doing one?
The benefits are, amazing. You get the experience of doing something on the side. Of course, it depends on your limitations on the visa status, right? If you're on a visa, that is primary importance. You have to make sure you're allowed to work. If you're allowed to work, then you can do whatever you want, right? So what I did was, when I came in for my postdoc, I think in the first 2 years, I got my green card. So I had the flexibility of doing whatever I wanted to do, right? So I did some programming. Those days, it was like bioinformatics was a new thing. That's how old I am. So did some programming courses, this and that. Then I was postdocing at Yale, and I found a eye clinic on the way. So I went there and I offered to do database management for them. So I worked on the side 2 hours in the evening, an hour in the morning, and helped them with the database management. I built their website where the doctors would check their eyes and put in the readings, and it would spit out an algorithm behind it for glasses, a prescription, and all of that. So that helped me in building network and realizing that I have different skills, other skills than what I already have. right? So depending on what your interests are, those days I wanted to get into bioinformatics. So I did that. I did that course and I tried to work on database management, Oracle, PLSQL, XYZ, all of that, right? So depending on what your skill sets are, where you want to go, I would encourage you to look at additional courses on the side and any side gigs that you can do if you're allowed to do it officially. If you're not officially allowed to do it, you can do like internships or just help out people volunteering services for free. If they want to give you $10, keep it in your pocket. Well, you can get creative with that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I guess Kavitha Rawat had a question. She had her hands raised. For quite some
Yeah.
time. You still have a question?
Hi. Thank you, Raghu. It was a great presentation. I'm a third-year postdoc at Dartmouth College, and right now I haven't decided. Like, I definitely want to transition, but I haven't decided like which path I should choose. But I was recently got interested into consulting because I think I saw a video. It was posted on YouTube from STEMPeers only, and so I think Dolan suggested that we should go for internships and other things to like get an experience initially. And since I'm on J1 visa, I cannot get paid from from my side jobs. So I identified another body, which is I think BAPSA, but it's only located in St. Louis. And it's not like, taking in people from other states. So in that case, how do I experience the consulting, branch of this thing? I mean, I can only do the ones which do not pay me just for experience.
That's right.
But how do I identify those? And especially in my approach, like in my state and other places where I can actually join them.
The nice part is, nowadays you're not restricted by the state where you're in. You don't need proximity. You can do a lot of it online. There are consultancy clubs around the place. I know you mentioned Dolan. I would recommend reconnecting with her. Also talk to Sohini, who used to run the Gurukool before. She did a lot of those consulting stuff. There was a consulting club in STEMPeers as well. So I would recommend, looking that up and connecting with people there. There are quite a few people doing consulting within STEMPeers. I would say network with them, ask questions, do a search online, see which one appeals to you, and do volunteer work. You can sign up into those clubs. There might be a small fee, but they will assign you small projects to do. You can do that, and I think that's how you build that experience. Did anybody else want to add something to it? Tracy?
Yeah, I will actually. So I gave you two in the chat. I know the Texas Medical Center has a consulting club. I do not know what their restrictions are, but since COVID, I've seen more and more coming out of that group, and they probably are open. I can't imagine that.
I know they are.
I think that's true of all of the consulting clubs. COVID shut everything down, so the in-person stuff didn't happen. The other thing, what Ragoo is really talking about, and I'll give you guys a framework to think about your entire big picture of your career exploration and job search, but you're at the beginning, and researching careers, figuring out what you think you want to do, trying them is good advice. But if you can't actually do it, right? Like if you can't do the internship and whatnot, talking to more and more people. So doing informational interviews will help you by understanding what that experience is like. And, I do recommend volunteering if you can find a group that, if your visa restrictions say you can't do it for pay, then volunteer and do it on the side. And it doesn't have to be a lot of hours. We've got some good examples of people doing like science writing and stuff in STEMPeers that has launched their career into science writing externally. The other thing I'll say is if it doesn't exist, build it. So if you want a consulting club and you want it to be in STEMPeers, then build it. because I guarantee there's others who are going to be interested in it. They will flock with you. You will eventually not be the only one doing it, and then you'll build that base of support so that you can pass out and shift tasks. But that's another good way to create the thing that you need. And then also, goes on your resume. It's, support activity, but it also builds a lot of skill set, right? So putting together a group, creating that infrastructure, events, organization, project management, like communication, like I can tell you so many of the skills that will come out of that are useful for any career that you go into.
Yeah, find like-minded people in your organization if you can, definitely, and around, and then make a little club of yourself, and then get guidance from others who've done it before, maybe. The Texas Medical Center that Tracy mentioned, I was a judge on one of those presentations, competitions, so I can connect you with somebody there if you want. If you want to.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Send me a
also,
message later, and I'll remember to do
Okay,
that.
thank you, Raghu. Yeah, I think Bapsa also pointed out, like, they suggested me a club in my own college, but the limitation is like they only take in the graduate students. So yeah, there are another kind of restrictions to certain things.
Yeah. No, just keep looking around. There'll be many, definitely.
Okay. Sure.
Oh,
Thank you.
I would
Thank you for all
push
your
the envelope
suggestions.
of that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I would really question
challenge them.
Yeah.
Challenge them.
They say, I bring more skill sets than somebody else could, and then challenge them and go for it. Somebody asked here, do you have any thoughts on joining a startup company versus a well-established company? Devarati.
Yeah, it's like if you have been having experience as postdoc and still not sure, you're interested but not sure whether you can handle it. I was wondering a startup might give
you can handle it.
A little more flexibility. Yeah, that's what, like this was my first interview. I landed up after getting green card because I was worried that time, and COVID forced us, there was hiring freeze for faculty positions. There was nothing else we could do. And then I was thinking startup might be better. So first a cracking interview, and then you have to do presentation and stuff where they tell you that you might have to do multiple jobs because it's a startup. And it's like, it's good that you will get experience and maybe things that you never explored, but it's at the same time intimidating because if you have never done anything in finance where you would be responsible, and if you fail, that would be like other people's responsibility too.
Yeah, there are pros and cons of working in a small company versus a large company, but you have to realize that if they hired you, they interviewed you, they saw you, they talked to you, and they made you an offer, that means they see something in you that they need, they can use. So you have to be confident. There's no point in being afraid, intimidated. You can be nervous, right? Everybody is going to be afraid. Me, after having 10 different jobs, work for 15 different years, my next job I take, I'll be intimidated. I'll be nervous. That's going to happen. Everybody has heard of imposter syndrome, right? Everybody goes through that. So it's just another thing, right? But you go with the confidence knowing that they hired you for a reason. And you were not the only person who applied. Trust me on that, right? So I tell that to my daughter every day. She's like, "Oh, I went to Duke University. I'm so dumb. Every other kid is so bright and sharp and smart." And I'm like, "You are one out of 6 people that they hired for the entire year. You should have something different, right?" So you should have that self-confidence, going in, and don't forget, you're good. That's how you got there. So if you go with that kind of a mental mindset, you'll do better. And small company versus large company, every place will have its issues and every place has its benefit. Like you said, if you're in a small company, you get to see different roles, you get to interact with everybody, how operations is going, how R&D is going, how management is going, how finance is going, how business is going. That was where I did my first 4 years of biotech, right? And then I switched from there. But then again, I worked in a company with 80,000 employees. You are in your own little silo. You're under one boss. He has 10 people. They have 10 people. They have 5 people. So you're in one little vertical. So you are exposed to only one part of the business, and you're supposed to do what you do, but you do it good. You do it really good, and you develop more on it, right? You may not get the visibility around it, but you know how to work, and you learn other skills. That's how you network, interact with other people.
I think one of the fears that comes with this is if I work for an established company, I have more job security than if I work at a startup. And I will say right now, that's not true. Like there is no academics is not more secure than industry, is not more secure than startups, is not more secure. There is no job security anywhere. And I know that's scary, right? Like we think we want to get to that and we want to be in a space. The good news is that unemployment right now is at an all-time low. Even better is that PhDs are at an extremely all-time low. So 0.4% of PhDs are currently unemployed in the US. Okay. Normally it's around 1 point something percent. Okay. Yeah. Even at 1%, that's awesome. Right. So the chances of you know, okay, you're going to get let go, or the company's being bought up and you don't know what's going to happen and there's uncertainty, or you're working for a boss that's not ideal, you can move, right? You don't have to stay there. You can get the experience that you get and then move on. And there's nothing saying, you know, you have to work for the same company. Ragoo's an example of that. I'm an example of this. And there's no gold watch for working for a company for 50 years. So, you know, nobody does that anymore. But it gives you the opportunities to take the opportunities when they come along and move through your career. So don't think of ladder, but think of lattice. So, you know, if you take a side step, that's okay. If you take a big jump, that's okay, right? Like as long as you're moving in your lattice space. Yeah.
And even if you let go, you don't let that pull you down, because, you know, there's always so many other opportunities. And it was a situation that happened that they had to let you go, but you know, always have other opportunities. And like Tracy said, the job market is so good out there. Every person I've heard so far who got let go had 3 offers within the next month, you know? So just be good at what you do and you'll be good. That's it.
Well, Sonia. And so I'll add in, well, I want to add one thing, and then Sonia, I want you to go. So, you know, at one point in my career, I was let go. But in that same month, I got a phone call and I was being recruited to something completely different. It didn't happen right away. I had time at home, but it was a good thing, right? Like, and I didn't see it that way at the time, but when I reflect on it, I'm like, thank God I had the space of time. So, you know, take your opportunities as they come, right? You know, do your best to keep a positive attitude. So I'm not saying that that's, you know, answering your question necessarily, because you're asking for, do I want to go startup or do I want to go business? And we've gone down a completely different rabbit hole. Sorry.
Thank you. Sonia, but still, those are good insights. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah. So I had a question. I see that a lot of links and the resources that you have shared are US based, but do you have something similar, or like, can you recommend something similar within Europe?
Sure, definitely. My company is in Europe. It's in Switzerland. So look us up in Spiro. We do have positions open, field-based position as well as scientist-based position. There are quite a few other mentors on STEMPeers who are also in Europe, and who would be happy to help you around with that. The compensation package, the work style is slightly different when you look at US versus Europe. So you have to be aware of that, talk to a few people there. But I know there are definitely a lot of opportunities out there as well, right? So look up the mentors group now that you're in Gurukool, right? So there's a file with list of names of all the mentors on it. So you feel free to reach out to them. You can see where they are located, what kind of job they're in. And I think that's a very good resource for all the Gurukool people. You know, and don't hesitate to reach out to people. Don't be shy. You know, that's the worst thing you can do to yourself. I'm telling everybody, not just Sonia at this point. Don't be shy. Reach out, and you know, if the squeaking wheel gets the oil, if you don't talk, you don't get stuff. I tell people even a little baby has to cry before the mother feeds the baby. So even though it's part of your own body, your family, it has to be, you have to ask, don't be shy. And yeah.
So we have one more question in the chat. So can
Mm.
you talk about work or life balance in a role like yours?
Good question. And that's from Tracy. So it's very important to consider that the reason I moved out of the bench, or I was thinking I should go into the field, was one of that. Um, I wanted to, obviously, if you want to have a nice life out there, you want more money. So one of the reasons that I made a career switch was obviously for money, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad reason to make a career change, right? So especially if you're going to field-based position, when you interview, if they ask you, so why do you want to come into sales? This is a valid answer. I want to make more money. It's a valid answer. It's actually a good answer sometimes because they know you have the drive, you have the motivation to do it. But again, right? So work-life balance is left to you. It's under your control to do it. It's not that when you're in academic lab, you can go home whenever you want, come whenever you want. Especially if you're doing cell culture, you have to run back to those babies all the time. If you have animals, you have to run back to them all the time. So it is going to be tough, and it is under your control how you plan it out. But the nice thing about being in the industry, biotech or pharma, is that you're not expected usually to go beyond those work hour timeframes, right? You're not expected to do it. You're expected to plan your day better, be effective, and deliver what you need to do within the work hour times. Depending on the role you have, if you have to go after hours, if that's a requirement, that's a different story. But then you have your vacation times, you have your holiday times, you plan with your boss. They respect your time, they respect your schedule. In an academic lab, you might be afraid to tell your boss that you need to take vacation for a week because you're afraid they may not want to let you go. But once you're in a company, you're a big person now. You're a big girl now. You can ask them, you can demand your vacation time. You can say, I need to take 2 days off. I need to do this, I need to do that. So you can take it and do it. You balance your life out that way. And now that you are in a bigger position, you're making a little more money, you feel a little more self-confident, and the way you behave, the way you interact with your colleagues becomes different. You'll start seeing yourself feeling better, nice, and that gives a little more mental, clarification, and you start feeling better about it. And then you choose where you want to spend your time wisely, right? So depending on what state you are, status you have, you're married or you have kids or you're single, you decide where you want to spend your extra time. That makes sense?
Yes. So I have like one specific question. So like what are the PhD or the postdoc qualification or the skills you can transform into business development role? Or
What
like
skills?
what skills are needed for business development actually?
You missed my whole slide?
No, I have seen, but like I need like some few specific or the top liners.
Yeah, so I'd say a whole lot of this analytical skills I was talking about earlier, right? So for to be an effective business development person, let me put this up so we can see what I'm talking about here, right? So when you're doing your PhD or postdoc, you have all of these skill sets here: analytical skills, communication skills, negotiation and persuasion skills. You're being goal focused because you want to head towards a paper, or you're building an experimental structure. You want to go one at a time and achieve it in a timely manner. You're organized. You looking at business intelligence is maybe not something that you gain when you're doing postdocing, but researching and strategizing. All of these are, I'd say, skills that you already have being a postdoc. You just want to redirect that in the side of business, in the commercial angle. And then you're all set. I think everybody coming out of a postdoc has all these skills, except realizing that how do I point this in the side of a business approach? How do I look at it as a commercial approach? So when you're a scientist, you might say, oh, this kit works good, this technology works good. But if you're in the business side of things, you'll say, oh, this works good. How much did I save on it? How much faster can I go with that? Right? This kit worked better than my homemade reagent, but I'm able to do more experiments within the same time. That saved me time, money, and effort, right? So you are looking in the business orientation, business perspective, right? That is the mindset trick that you have to bring in, right? How much am I gaining? How much am I losing? All of that helps in thinking through that.
Yep, that makes
Did
sense.
I
Thank
answer
you.
your question, Gaurav?
Yep. So if anybody has any questions?
Yeah.
So I'm
1
going to
hour
turn off.
session became 1.5 hours. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can stop the recording.
that always
So-
happens. I'm going to stop the recording here.
Sure.